strategy,
design,
marketing,
UX,
digital.
development.
This is Agencies That Build. This show is dedicated to leaders and teams that design and deploy in the digital world. My name is Jessie, and I'm a marketer and an agency owner.
And I'm Varun. I'm not a marketer, but a coder and an agency partner.
This show is sponsored by Together We Ship.
On a mission to help agencies grow.
All right, rock on. Here we are, Varun, my friend. How are you? We're both in shades of pink today. Not planned.
Yeah,
I like it.
absolutely.
I know.
Coincidence.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happened before. We usually don't color coordinate. It's kind of fun and exciting. All right. So are you ready for this guest? And I think we're going to do an icebreaker question before we get into our Mythbuster. Let me introduce her and then I will ask her. Does that work for you? Ready?
Absolutely. Let's
All
do it.
right. So our next guest is recently back from vacation, which has inspired our the icebreaker question today. She's got a little bit of a twist in her origin story, making a career pivot from the nonprofit world. While she went back to school, she's always preferred to pick things up along the way rather than in a classroom setting. She's all about delivering beautiful things that leaves clients and partners in awe. With a passion for meeting deadlines and exceeding expectations, she thrives on projects where everything is about getting it done right. Or you might say, getting shit done. I said it. Please welcome our guest and co-founder, creative director, Wizardly, Meg Schlabs. Welcome.
Thank you.
Podcast.
What a good intro. That I feel honored. Thank you very much.
All right, so here's my question for both of you.
Okay.
If you're going to go on a vacation, do you pick ocean or mountains?
Mountain every time. Sorry. I already knew.
No
Mountain.
doubt.
What
I
about
mean,
you?
absolutely mountains.
Really?
Yeah.
Ocean every time, 100%.
Really?
I do love
it's so
mountains.
sandy
Spent
and
a lot
sticky.
of time. Yeah, but I am going to sit in the beach, put me on a surfboard, put me in a boat, put me flims, everything water related,
wow.
sand, the whole thing. Under sunblock, under an umbrella, covered
Yeah,
in long sleeve
sure.
shirt because pasty
I have
white.
fair skin too, right? Yeah, I get you. Well, maybe it's because we live so close to the ocean that I've burned myself out, but I was always like this. Growing up, we were like 6 hours from Colorado Rockies, and they're beautiful. And we were in the mountains as often as we could be, but I love them. There's something like more peaceful to me and quiet and retreating about going to like a mountain that makes you realize you're small.
True.
But you could feel
Exactly.
that on the beach. You could feel the vastness of like the earth that makes you feel so little, which is a comfort.
Well, but then you just don't do anything. Like you're just sitting quietly on the beach chair doing
True.
Maybe
nothing.
you do. I'm like running
Well,
around and
Jessie seems like she stays active on a beach. Surfing?
Sometimes
surf?
it's like I would love to. That's it. This is my second. So I grew up skiing. So I've spent a lot of times in the mountains, in New England and Vermont and all of that. And so I've decided, I was like, there's a lot of, it's just cold and a lot of like hauling of equipment. And so I was like, I have a 1-year-old, and the moment she can stand and walk, we're going to go, I'm like surfing, swimming, water, all the things. That's, and skiing. I'm going to teach her to ski, but I wouldn't turn a mountain down. I love them. I love hiking and all that, but all right. Should we get into our myth busting question here for a minute? I'm going to interesting.
Okay, I'm ready. Sure.
All right. So smash some sort of myth, bogus strategy, misconception. What do you want to set the record straight on?
Okay. Very thoughtful question. Thank you. I'm going to go with that. There's no one perfect logo or brand position for companies. I have always, and I've been saying this in presentation rooms to clients for 10 years. There are multiple options here, and it is a leap of faith. And how are we going to, present one and go with it and test it? So in true UX designer fashion, I would rather get any idea up and running and test it early and often rather than wait around for the perfect idea.
So explain that a little bit. When you say no perfect brand positioning, are you, and the logo, are you talking about more from the perspective of, like, love the idea of A/B testing. You should do A/B testing all the time. But when it comes to the brand and logo, how do you define, like, I want to go with this brand positioning versus that? Do you, because when you're building a website or web presence, you're not going to create multiple versions of your logos and brands, or maybe you do. I mean, what is your
Yeah,
proposal?
we
Like,
do.
how do you navigate
Yeah,
that?
yeah, we do, and we use a combination of research on the target audience and brand positioning. And it's kind of my belief that like every business is scaling into something at any given moment. And so all businesses that are good are growing. So they're right around the corner to some change in their business structure, whether it's a new product or how the market shifts and changes and the impact of their brand feels that response. But I feel like we present multiple visual design directions before we go out to create anything based on multiple different brand positionings. And we say, here's one way to position your brand based on some, brand differentiators that you have and some openings that we see in your market. Here's one way we could put you up. And all your visuals would be connected to that messaging and that statement, that brand positioning statement. Or here's another way, and let's get it up and let's test it, or let's get a prototype out and do a one pager and kind of do some A/B stuff. So,
Is there a specific size of a company that you recommend would want to do that approach? Because, I mean, yeah, I mean, so larger the company, because I relate to that to our own firm, right? We are decent size. We are about 400 people, but our services are so broad. The things that we offer, span across multiple industries and service offerings. For us, it does make sense to have, tight positioning, and we can and should probably do multiple testing because of, the way we are set up. But when you work with your clients, how do you decide that if this is the right moment for them or the right type of service offerings and industries that they are targeting, which require them to be doing this kind of A/B testing on brand positioning?
so how do we arrive at our different brand positioning options for clients? Yeah. So we do about 3 strategy sessions where we take in a lot of information. We try to understand what a company already knows about its brand and why they're coming to us in the first place. Because most of the time, if they're coming to a design agency like Wizardly, they are ready for a change, or they're ready to capitalize on a new area of expertise or a new product. They're pushing a new product out, so they're already in transition. And we do a ton of just competitor analysis, target audience research. And based on the research, we identify brand differentiators, value propositions, and we do a little hedgehog concept from good to great, where we, ask those 3 questions, like, what are you good at? What can you be the best in the world at? And what drives your economic engine? And somewhere in that sweet spot, a concept emerges from our team, just brainstorming and listening to our clients. So first strategy session is all about digesting, and the second one is about presenting, and the third one is about let's really define and hammer in and walk away from this meeting knowing what we're going to go off to create. So, and that's before we even touch, Illustrator or Figma at all.
I like that first step, because I think that's something that a lot of people miss, is the listening. Even marketing, sales, development, any sort of agency, we've worked at some and for and with and all of that. And I think that's an important step in the process. I like that you call it out in particular, because when you're listening to your client, they're going to say things that they don't say. There's things that they're,
yes,
oh man,
that is so today. Right.
you know, it's like reading between the lines, especially when it comes to brand, you can assessing the sentiment and how they're communicating some of the things, not necessarily, oh, I hate the
That's
color
so right.
blue. It's like, well, you don't hate the color blue. You actually hate that all of your competitors are blue right now. So you're looking to be
Yes,
able to differentiate, and they don't always know how to communicate that up front.
they don't. Yeah, that's so true. And my myth at the end of the day, I mean, we are going to choose one concept and we're going to go off and create that. So, you know, we arrive at something, but I just don't believe, I think we, you know, sometimes when client chooses A, they could have chosen B, and we would know more about the company. I guess the point is there's no perfect answer, you know, and it's better to move forward. We're going to see more progress moving forward than if we're standing still debating, you know, which way to go.
Even
But
changes and preferences change in the market too. Like if you think about Google, for example, they've changed their logo quite a few times over the years.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It changes as soon as you get it up. It changes, and you learn something about yourself when you observe how your business interacts with its market. Um, we used to be, to your point, Jesse. Though we used to just have our strategy team in the brand strategy meetings, and we've learned that our copywriters really need to be in those meetings, or need to be watching recordings of them, because you cannot communicate all the nuance that comes up when a client just speaks about why they created their company in the first place and what gets them excited to go to work every day. It comes through, and it inspires both words and visuals.
That's an interesting point. We've talked to a lot of agents. Well, we talked to a lot of agencies, end of sentence. But recently, a lot of the agencies that we've talked to are bringing in the, I'll use the word creatives loosely because it covers not only copy, design, but also development and engineering, depending on the nature of the business and what they're producing. You know, historically, traditional agency approach would be you have your account manager or your producer, whomever, in those meetings, and then they commute back to the larger team even. But we're seeing this huge shift where agencies are, well, they have some of those roles. These experts are now within these conversations and, you know, having these conversations direct with the client to be able to communicate between the two of them. So have you guys always done it that way, or is that something that how did you figure that out, that was like working better?
Because I was hitting my head against the wall trying to channel communications, and realizing, I mean, I'm new to being a manager because we were a two-man team for so long. So we wore all the hats, and there are benefits to that. And as soon as we started removing ourselves from certain meetings or certain situations and delegating to team, you realize what's lost in those conversations. And so leading into messaging is kind of a new thing for us, because we came from design development background. And so our newest products are strategy and messaging. And so it was only, I think, one client that we didn't have the copywriter in the room. And we learned pretty quickly, oh, like there needs to be more connection between our like the person that's driving this project and who really knows the company, and the person going off to write copy for our web project. So
there are instances, I will say, where they shouldn't be in the room, depending on where you are in the project. Like I think I've told this story in the podcast before, but it's funny. I was at teeny tiny interactive agency. I was the only account person there. It was great. And we had a client who had an art director on their end who just needed to be involved, but wasn't coming to meetings and things like that. And we were building a website for them, and it was a consumer B2C, it was a consumer website. And I think we moved the hero image on the website 21 times, but 21 times.
Lord, I've been there.
2 pixels here, 2 pixels here. And I was like, you don't get to come to the meetings and talk to him anymore. She's like, I think I'm going to jump through the screen and like, you know, like strangle this guy. I was like, you're good. I'm going to take you up for ice cream. We'll be okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those.
That QA.
Yeah. So funny. Tell us. Oh, go, Varun.
I would like to switch gears a little bit and ask you about, well, first of all, amazing name, Wizardly. I think I love the name. So I'd love to know more about the origins of the name and your own origin story. How did you guys come into business? What's your story? Just tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you. I came from a copywriting background and was always crafty on the side. That's the way I described myself leading into a career in design. Just always creating something, but most of the time just bombing at everything I tried. But I kept trying, made candles, made whatever. And on top of that, I've always had an entrepreneurial streak. So I've been making businesses since I was literally in junior high. Halo Home Services. In high school, I had an actual employee. I created an organization company called Simply Put. I learned pretty quickly that I really like the beginnings of things. I like launching something. I like, ideating in that high level phase of like, what can this company be? And so it makes sense that I landed in branding. The second half of my career, I went back to school for graphic design and web design and ended up meeting mostly branding needs when I first got into it. But as soon as somebody comes for a logo design, they did a web design. And I did not want to do any development. So I reached out to a friend of mine back home who ended up a few years later marrying into my family. So we're connected, we're in-laws. And Josh, my business partner, is married to my husband's sister. And it took us a long time. Yeah, it took us a long time to say that in a very concise way, because we'd always start and be like, Josh is my, he's married, our spouses are, anyway, we finally landed. So yeah, we have been working together for 12 years and really just completed, loops for each other. So I would design a brand and get the web design rolling. He would develop it, and then our clients would be so happy because we could provide everything they needed. And over time, we looked up one day and all of my clients were his clients and his clients were mine. So we decided to create Wizardly in 2017. And it was a really fun project to launch into the world. But it's also infuriating to do your own branding. I'm sure there have been people talking about it. It's just it's impossible.
That's so emotional. You can unemotional for other people and walk them through it, but doing your own brand is like, we've done a few over the years for together, and then both of our individual brands, like, oh, it sucks.
It's awful.
And it gets almost the least priority, right? Our own projects, like, they don't get the love that we want to give or we give to our clients. It always happens, Our teams make horrible mistakes on our own websites all the time, but they would be immaculate at when it comes to the client. I don't know why there's this mindset. I don't know, that if somebody is giving us money, yes, we will do everything for that. But for your own stuff, they would just, I don't know.
It's always an afterthought. It's nights and weekends. That's how we're doing it again to ourselves. I don't know why we're doing this. Although we've brought in some really great people along the way to help us craft certain pieces of it. But our original design had an 8-bit wizard in it. That all these blocks, if you can see behind me that are stacked up, they stack up to be a 3-foot 8-bit wizard. The name Wizardly it originated with this, like, we thought our target audience was a company starter in their mid-30s, mid-40s. We thought, how fun and nostalgic would it be for them to see something that reminds them of the early internet, and just how simple it was back then, and there were no APIs, and I don't know, maybe there were. I should know my internet history better. But it was simple, it was easy, and we wanted to feel like magic. And working with us, we've always had that care and compassion piece to us, is we try to make the process as painless as possible for people. And so, just like magic is a phrase that we say a lot. And it's stuck with us, that value. It's not one of our core values anymore, but it's still, there's a thread of it left in our company as it's evolved.
Now, how do you guys, we've had a lot of folks on the podcast talk about starting with co-founders, how it's awesome, how it's not awesome. How do you guys make it work? Tell us a little bit about, what's I know you have yin to the yang with development
Yeah.
and design together. What are some of the tricks that and like, get specific, like what are those golden nuggets that you're like, here's how we communicate. Like Varun and I jokingly, like we're addicted to Slack. So if we need each other, I know go to Slack versus email because he knows it's going to take me 3 hours to get back to him over email. If he really needs
Yeah.
me, I get a text, stuff like that.
Mhm.
How do you guys make that work?
Well, just one point, like not only the communication piece, I would also would love to learn more, like, or hear your story about, like, there was a gap why you guys joined forces, right? You had your skills and he had his skills, and now I don't know if he was married to a family earlier or was he outside earlier, it happened later. Whatever the story was, there was some trust factor, right? So that trust, how did you develop that trust and ensure that that trust is helping us take the next leap and take us forward? So what are some of the learnings in partnering up with somebody in the family? So that is also a piece that I would like to club into that.
That's a better
how
question.
do you make
Answer
all of
that
that work?
Ooh, wow. This is a challenging question and a good one. And I know I've heard horror stories about family members working together. And I'm really grateful that Josh and I have been able to make it work over time. When we were deciding to partner, I sat down a friend of mine who also had a business partner, and I was like, how do you know, if this is the right way to go? I didn't quite understand at the time how much it would feel like a marriage partnership. Partnering in business is very much like a marriage. And I didn't know that at the time. So I was really just looking for basic information. But he gave me the best advice that I feel like just holds up and has held up every point of the way. Is it's really not about that person's capabilities and their skill set. It's about, do you trust them? And are you capable of growing as a human with that person? Because, and one of the mistakes we've made over time is if as long as you know what you want out of your business and you have some really clear goals and you're willing to anticipate success and failure, then you're going to be able to survive in any hurdles that come to you in business. So changing the way we operated, where I had the first half of the loop and he had the second half of the loop, and we closed, and that was our standard operating procedure for 6 years. It was hard, but we got there because we decided to commit to one another and to be really clear about our goals for the future. And then talk maybe for the first time about what would happen if this fails? What would happen if we succeed? What would happen if we succeed and it's really, really hard? And where are the boundaries of like how much we want to work and how, and when we had some incredible business coaches about 2 years ago that got us in a room together, had us answer questions separately and come together and put our heads together about it. And we decided to adopt the traction model of operating. So if you want to get really practical, we are very buttoned up with our agendas and our leadership meetings. And I'm visionary, he's integrator from the traction model. That might change in the future. It's just a hat we put on. We're willing to kind of, let that flex and play different roles within the company. But that's how Josh loves meetings. I hate them with passion, but he knows this and I know that about him. So he will always want to verbally communicate and I will always want to Slack, hit the lights out, I'm just like, and he's like, can we move to a phone call? And I'm like, yeah. So if you want to get really practical about, if we love cold calls, which is probably maybe a huge no-no to another partnership, but it's just so convenient to be like, what do you think about this thing right now in 5 seconds? And then I'm leaving you and, we're done. So.
Yeah.
I talk too long? Did I talk too long?
No.
That's a great answer, right? I love traction model. I'm glad that you guys brought it up because I mean it's very, very useful and straightforward for somebody, especially who's trying to grow. to bring that model early in the process. And sometimes you have to wear multiple hats, right? I mean, I remember when we were small, I was kind of wearing sales and marketing integrator as well as operational hat. Not an ideal, but until that role is filled in, you have to have somebody who
Driving it.
understands that right now I am driving this role and I have to, fulfill the need of the hour. So
Yes.
that's a great model.
It's great. It's great for accountability. It's great for learning that if you're on a team, it can be a leadership team with the right people. And then you start, releasing all those little things that we are used to wearing, multiple hats. So yeah, I'm glad you like it. And I know it's old school, but it works.
Can you guys just define it for folks listening who may not be familiar, like a quick, traction? I know we've brought it up
You
a few
should
times.
take that one. Yeah.
Varun, you do it.
So traction model
for listeners.
Well, so the traction model is a type, the way you operate your business. It's a business operating. It's a entrepreneur operating system. It's a system which allows you to manage the business in a way which is very, very clear to everybody in the firm, like who is doing what. So it starts with visionary, who basically, decides who is the leader, who takes, this is where we are going, who sets the goal and the targets and vision for the company. Then there's an integrator. Integrators comes in between, who basically helping keep all the systems together. Under them, then you have, sales and marketing role, you have HR, you have finance, you have operations. And then under all of these roles, you will have different people, and the entire team falls under these umbrellas. But this allows you to stay focused and accountable to their role, to what they're supposed to do. So that's, in a nutshell, what I think the model allows you to do. Did I get that right?
It sets out, yeah, that's so much better than I could have done, because I didn't brush up on my traction before this call. But it also outlines how you might move through a meeting using these goals and or blockers, which makes meetings very, very productive, and you don't end up wasting people's time because you know what you're there for, and you spend the majority of each meeting on the issues that really matter and removing blockers from them to get to the end of the goal. So yeah, it's really good.
Is there like a specific format that you guys use at Wizardly that, as someone who loves and hates meetings, the two of you, is there a format that you guys have found that really works? Like, when I structure a larger kickoff meeting, for example, I'm like, okay, here's the agenda, here's what we're going to cover. I always write a project plan before we enter. And that's, for me, that's part of the process, which everybody goes back, and that's how we have reference points. So there aren't any deviations from conversation or things like that. What do you guys do to be able to kind of, I'm looking for nuggets. Like, what do you do it? And what tools do you use to do it? I'm going to ask that. Do you have a PM system? How do you guys run that?
Internally? Oh yeah. We have, our first hire was an operations director, and she is so good. She's got to be like genius level certified on all project management softwares. And we chose Monday.com a few years ago, and are so deep. And it's great. It's really great. Everything's automated. But we use Monday.com. We use Notion, a lot of Fig Jams for design brainstorm. But I will say, as somebody who hates meetings, if I know why I'm in a meeting and somebody can tell me what we're doing in that meeting, I'm happy. I just hate meetings that aren't productive. And I hate meetings that feel like, well, I could have spent this time like moving forward on my list of my, deep list of tasks. But I'm just regurgitating traction at this point to tell you this next bit. But you start every meeting with a really tight 10 minutes, and it's on track, off track. So you're just like, is this, you could put anything in that bucket, like projects or leadership tasks. We're doing an internal marketing go-to-market plan. And so like, we'll go through each one: on track, off track, on track, off track. If it's off track, it goes to the issues list. From there, we do review our goals for both project management, so like in a project management world, or if we're doing our core project meeting, The list of goals would be like, are we effectively communicating with client? Are we delivering, deliverables on time? Those would be overarching goals that span every single project that end up like, it's never going to change. These are, in traction, they call them rocks, but for the sake of this conversation, just use the same goals. Then you end up your last like 45 minutes, you prioritize the issues, the off-track issues list, and you just start going down the list. So priority number one, this is a really big issue. We've lost trust with this client. We really need to regain it. How can we do that? How can we get in their inbox this week with like help and, more freebies than they were expecting? And we IDS, like identify, define, and solve each issue. So
I'll just add one thing that we do, and which I think many companies do, they just don't talk about that maybe. These meetings are called level 10 meetings, which you are doing, I think, every month or every week, right? So yes, the first 10 minutes are off track, on track, but before those 10 minutes, we allocate 5 minutes to check on each other in the meeting. How are they doing?
We do that.
Right? That's so important. People miss that. I mean, people don't remember such an important aspect of those meetings, because we come to the workplace with just thinking about work without disassociating the human element to it, and we forget about that. But we make sure at least, every time. And people, after some time, people started really liking that. They started reminding us, we did not do the icebreaker. We did not talk about how we are feeling today. So that was really, big takeaway for me when we started doing this more and more often. Like, this is important for the people. Like, we don't feel that much. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I'm really glad you reminded me that we do that. I'm so clearly a brass tacks person. I'm like, get to work, people. But yeah, that is Josh's area of expertise and strength that he brings into our company. He has, and we both, I've often said that like having employees is like having children, but I don't mean that derogatorily at all. Having children is the most fun I've ever had. And it's a wonder to create a family and a family culture, and to be on a team for life. And the beauty of parenting is like, they're just passing through your fingers. You only have a few moments in time with these people to like be a part of their life. And it's the same with the employees. Like, we only have so long to be a part of their work journey. And how are we going to cultivate them as humans and push them towards their goals? And everybody moves on at the end of the day. All kids have to leave the house, And so expecting that and knowing it's coming. I mean, we still have lots to learn at Wizardly about how to be good bosses, but I think that's something that's been mulling around in my brain, maybe because I have 3 kids and always trying to find ways to pull something I know from one area of my life into the other, because I'm not very compartmentalized.
Which is it's a good thing in a lot of ways, and it helps you, at least, and then you're able to kind of figure out where to put the barriers and the boundaries. I want to pivot because I want to chat through an interesting move that you guys are making over there in terms of how you recognize some of the needs in your market and how you've pivoted kind of what you're offering. What we talked about in the prep call was around, B2B, and you found this niche in biotech specifically, and how you found that B2B businesses, while you're designing websites, they don't make money off their websites. B2B business, it's like a brochure in a lot of cases. And we do a ton of work with B2B businesses, but the idea of pivoting and where you're headed with that, can you talk us through that a little bit, and how, the process and recognizing that? Because I think that's interesting, as an agency, it's hard to say, here's the core thing that we do, but this is really what our clients need. So we need to figure out how to pivot to be able to continue, generating revenue, I guess. So tell us a little, I know I teased it up there a little bit. Why don't you kind of.
No, it's great.
Knock it in, my friend.
All right. So I hope this is helpful because I will say we're very new to exploring this idea with our clients. And it really has been based on that. We have a value at Wizardly to be problem solvers. And that approach with every client has made us realize that sometimes, clients think the first touch point that they need is a website, and that's how they get to us, because that's traditionally what we've offered is web and branding services. But for a company that's going to market for the first time, or a startup in startup mode, they're often going through these rounds of funding, and they really need messaging help and to hammer that down on the front end. So a lot of the most important decision makers in their company are coming from investors in a boardroom, not viewing their website. And so we doing deck design kind of took us by surprise, because although we offered print and digital graphic design services, we just could not stop landing deck projects. And we would treat them, oftentimes we will treat them very similarly to a web project, in that we'll dig around and do our competitor analysis research. We'll do a lot of target audience research, because I will say their targets change depending on which meeting they're at. So, somebody who's getting funded by a bank in one meeting and then getting funded by a venture capitalist in another meeting, sometimes we've had to do multiple versions of the deck for that. But anyhow, we start with a deck. Really, it helps to solidify their messaging, and then they know a little bit more about themselves, and they can have an elevator pitch, like, walking into that room too.
It's an interesting thing
yeah,
that you guys noticed with, and this is specifically to startup target audiences in particular. And
yeah,
like having these conversations, going back to kind of the original part of this episode, which is like listening to your clients and saying, what do you guys need? What are you looking for? And you go, okay. See how we went full circle here? It's pretty fun and exciting.
Yeah, good job. You pulled the thread. Love it.
I just think it's an interesting pivot, because I think, as an agency, having a startup, giving you the keys to that asset, like they hold that so close, because it's like a make or break there. It's so interesting.
Make or break moment.
To position yourselves as a partner to be able to support a company like that. And I think you guys are so smart to identify that need in particular. How did you notice, and I think you've talked through it a little bit, but like, how did you notice that was a thing they wanted? And how did you figure out how to charge for it? And you don't have to tell us how much you charge, but like,
no, it's so hard. I will say that our deck pricing, for a 30-slide deck is kind of rivaling an 8-page website at this point. They're about the same price point. And these clients don't seem to mind, because this is more important to them.
Yeah.
And the messaging piece is huge. So, we started just as like, oh yeah, we can put that together. Oh yeah, you need PowerPoint, Keynote, whatever. Yeah, like this is my posture in life. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just dive like into the deep end and start working on that for you. Over time, we realized that it's a nice looking deck will be really pretty to look at. What's more important is that messaging piece. So we created a bunch of questionnaires that would help, sometimes there are CTOs that are doing a presentation. They're not used to talking to investors. They're used to talking to a room full of developers. And so pulling out, it's the same conversations as our branding strategy. It's like pulling out what is unique and different about this product and why they're hitting the market now. We have sort of a protocol for how we would set up a pre-seed deck versus a Series A deck. And we have enough now in the backlog that we can be like, this is what most people are doing and it's working. We have some stats on how well
that's amazing, because that
companies are doing. Yeah,
that like that when people go, oh, and again, back to the trust piece of it, you're building that trust and says, look, we've done this a bunch, we're experts, while we won't get it perfect every time, you still have to give up and give the presentation, but we can definitely give you more confidence. It's such a hard thing as a as a startup to be able to say, oh, we're confident in this deck. You have to do it a couple of times, and having a partner to be able to be like, oh yeah, we got it. We got you. We'll build you something beautiful. We know it's going to work. We've done this a million times. It's just such an interesting pivot.
Yeah,
It's kind of inevitable when you work with startups. So we work with startups not on the brand design, but more from the perspective of building the software and applications for them, building a product for which they need to raise money. And when, we work with them when it comes to the presentations and deck. Content is so important, like you mentioned, right? Yes, you can beautify that. That's all good. But unless you show the real value of, how this business is going to get the investors' money back, that is what the core. And when you help them define that, that holds such an important step in helping that client go to the next level. And if you can help them win that, investment, they will be your clients forever, because that's, the source of money for them, and that will flow through you. So that makes so much sense to invest into that opportunity and, make sure that your clients are successful, which will eventually help you succeed with them. I want to take another question on, as an agency owner, how you talked about some, in the past, you have had business coaches. Where do you hang out to continue learn and grow about the agency business? Like, where do you make sure that what do you read? Where do you spend your time researching and learning about this industry where you are in? And just tell us more about how you keep you up to date.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. We have a really solid creative mornings here in Charleston that I love attending. Josh leads or sits on a board of a UX team in Nashville, where they put on UX competitions, which is really fun, and Wizardly sponsors stuff like that. Gosh, my favorite place to learn about not just agency life, but business life is just talking to, I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends, both male and female, and asking them what their pain points are for business right now and how they're handling their people. It could be, an animation friend that I have, or a furniture company. We're all going through the same things. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be an agency. I know we're on the podcast Agencies That Build, but building a company and taking care of your people and doing good work, like those threads run all the way through every business. So I find the most inspiration from my friends who are building companies and are in my same stage of building. This book is called Keep Going by Austin Kleon. It is the follow-up to Steal Like an Artist. I love his books. I find them to be, I'm an avid reader when I'm at home and in my home space that I'm consuming fiction, nonfiction, but I don't read a lot of workbooks. I should, but I read a few pages of this every morning before I start working, and I love it. So.
All right, thank you. I'll definitely check it out. I love, books like these for sure. And you also mentioned about the pain point. That was my next question going to be, like, what are your pain points? What is something that keeps you up at night? I would love to hear that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm up at night. Yes. Okay. So right now it's sales. Because when we started scaling, we had a little savings in the bank. And so we decided to first build our systems and our operations. And I'm making this sound too buttoned up. What we were doing is running around with our hair on fire. But in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, oh, we did this, this, and this. So, but we did first start on our operations and systems. And then we landed just the most wonderful team I could ever ask for. And I'm so grateful for them. They are the right people for us, period. And what we didn't push into the world was a sales strategy and marketing strategy, because we were kind of coasting, and we were accustomed to landing enough for just me and Josh, and now we've got a full team, and payroll's bigger. And so we're working on our sales this year, and we're going to look completely new on the web in a few weeks time, hopefully not months time. But we have a really fun strategy, and it's been hard and challenging, but doing the design work and messaging for these companies going to market, at the end of the day, that's really just sales. And creating a proposal for a company who wants to pitch their services to somebody else, like, that's sales. And so I felt like I'm equipped. It's just, what's hard is knowing when to stop or what's enough. Like, I'm going to do these 5 things and not these 10 things, and then give them time to work. So that's where we are at.
That leads me to the last question, which you kind of,
Okay.
I'm guessing what your answer might be, but what's exciting you about the future? I know you guys have some stuff that you're launching that you just teased, but what else you
Yes.
got cooking? What else? What do you?
I'm excited about design subscriptions and seeing where this leads for Wizardly. We have intentionally not been a retainer-based company because we feel like retainers can sometimes be unfair for both parties. So it takes a lot more effort to restart scope with clients and manage cash flow. But we have a new product we're rolling out, designed subscriptions, in an effort to provide really solid design services with a company that's been there from the beginning. So they really understand how to position you at every little turn and can, grow with you. So that would be a unique selling point of that. But like in life, I'm excited for fall. It's really hot in Charleston right now. So what are you guys excited about right now?
Well, I don't think everyone's ever turned it back on both of us.
Yeah, come
Varun,
on,
what do you got? What are you excited for?
Oh, well, I'm actually very excited for the rest of the summer because we only get like 4 months or 3 months here, and this is a time I love spending with my kids. I mean, this is the time when they're home, not going anywhere, and I definitely look forward to this summer and then do lots of hiking. So
fun.
That's what we do.
I would say I'm excited for 5 weeks of now when my chicken wing is healed.
Aww.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. Nothing like a
Right.
good big puppy to knock you over and crack an elbow. So in about 5
so
weeks,
sorry.
we should be good to party. It's okay. I'm enjoying not changing diapers right now. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I may milk that a little bit longer. Nobody tell my other half. So, well, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Meg, on the episode. So where folks can find you, you're on the LinkedIn, you're on all of the things. It's wizardly.co is your company website.
Yes.
And that's it, everyone. So if you've learned something today or laughed, please tell somebody about the podcast. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening. Find our other episodes on agencies.build.com. Plus, we're listed anywhere you find your favorite podcast.